First, just say y'all's names, and then were you named after a family member, or does your name have a special meaning?
Me first.
Wilbert Templeton, and I guess I was named after W. Leo Daniels.
Tell them why.
Well, I think we run out of names.
Or who? Who is he?
He was governor of Texas, or he was running for governor. I guess he finally got to be governor of Texas. And what's odd about it, he was running against her
Cousin.
Oh, wow.
Later on, one of my aunts said, "You know, I helped name you." And I thought to myself, I knew there was some reason I didn't like you.
You done?
Yep.
Ann Allred Templeton. And I was named Ann because my mother didn't like her name. It was Geneva Winnie. And she gave me the shortest name that there was, without even an E on the end of it, and no middle name. So my middle name is my maiden name, Allred, which is a famous Texas name because my cousin beat the guy that Wilbert was named for governor.
Do you have a nickname that your siblings or friends call you? And how did you get that nickname?
I had a nickname when I started to work at, actually it started in high school. My daddy's nickname was Stump. And so I got nicknamed Sprout. And when I went to work at Texas Power and Light, I made the mistake of telling my boss that. And that's all I was called at Texas Power and Light was Sprout. And then in the Army, of course, since I was from Texas, I was called Tex. And that's the only two good ones I can tell you about.
My Uncle Charlie, used to call me Annie Rooney. Now, that's the only nickname I think I've ever had.
Where were you born, and what was your house like as a child?
I was born in Ladonia, Texas, and it was just a typical farm house. Work and
No
indoor plumbing. It was an outhouse, no running water. We had a well on the porch, and that's where we got our water from. And of course, it was just work.
I was born in Dallas, Texas at St. Paul Hospital, and we lived on Ridgedale, which was considered North Dallas then. It's really Central Dallas now. 2 blocks north, or 2 blocks east of Central Expressway. 1 street shy of the M streets. And my dad paid $4,000 for that house in about 1941 or 2. And it didn't have a hallway that you could go into rooms from that hall. All the rooms led from one room to another. My bedroom and the living room were both off of the front porch, and you had outside doors for both of those. And the thing about that house was, years later, when I was grown, a friend of mine from high school sent me a clipping about the house across the street from our house, and it sold for over $300,000. So my dad should have held on to it, but he didn't.
How did your family spend time together when you were young?
Working.
Doing what?
Well, of course, we were farmers, and of course, the boys, you know, we played together, and we hunted and since I was the youngest, if we were off somewhere, and they said, sure would be nice if we had something from the house, and they told me to go get it, and I said, well, I'm not going. They said, well, we'll give you such and such, but so I'd go, and I hadn't got any of that yet. So, but it was mostly work.
My grandmother came to live with us when I was 8 years old, and she was already in her late 70s, and so on Saturday it was my job to help clean the house, vacuum and dust, and my dad would get out in the yard after I came home from school, when he got home from work, and play ball with me because he loved baseball. I had a bicycle. We used to ride bicycles. We had roller skates, and I loved ice skating at Fair Park. And when I had my 9th grade birthday, we had a party at the Fair Park ice rink. And my grandmother made me a green corduroy skating outfit for that party. I didn't have any siblings, so I didn't have a lot of people to play with. There were a few neighborhood kids. There were 2 or 3 girls that lived next door, and one that lived across the street, and a boy that lived down the street that we got out and played together some. But I used to ride my bicycle to the park, which was like 8 or 10 blocks away, to go swimming at the park swimming pool.
What was your favorite subject or teacher in school?
I don't know that I had a favorite subject. We had pretty much the same teachers. They never seemed to change. The first grade teacher was there from the time I started until I finished school. She was still teaching first grade, and I think the second and third were still there, and maybe the 4th grade teacher changed, and but the teacher stayed pretty much the same all the way through.
You didn't have a favorite high school teacher?
Not really.
Okay. I had really good teachers in grade school. They were all veteran teachers. They were older ladies that had been teaching forever. But my 5th grade teacher's name was Miss Jane Boyd, and she wore a black skirt and a white blouse every single day. And we had to write the alphabet, cursive, capitals and lowercase, every morning until she said that we could quit doing it. And I was the first one in my class to get to stop doing it. In high school, my favorite teacher was my junior English teacher, and she was a graduate of the University of Texas, and I was kind of her pet. And my best friend was brilliant, and she got up unhappy because the teacher would give me a better grade than she gave her on a essay, and really she probably did a better job than I did. But
What is the most important lesson that your parents taught you?
How to work. We grew up working, and really we had to work because that's how we survived. We were on a farm, and everybody worked, and so I learned how to work, and I just carried that with me even after I left home and came to Dallas to get a job. I just kept on doing, I didn't slack off on my job. I worked hard, and I worked a lot of overtime because other people didn't want to work overtime, and consequently by doing that, I learned their jobs, and which helped me advance more in the company. So I guess hard work.
One of the things that stuck with me that my dad, when I did start working, And my uncle was executive vice president of Texas Power and Light, and so he got me a summer job between my junior and senior year in high school. And so I would ride to work with my dad because he was still working at Lone Star Gas Company. And he would preach to me on the way to work. Now when you get there, don't fool around and go to the ladies' room and stay and powder your nose. Go right to work. And when it's time for lunch, don't be late coming back from lunch. And when you don't have anything else to do, don't sit and read a magazine. Act like you're busy doing something. So, in other words, give the company a day's work.
What did your friends do for fun when you were young? Did you have a best friend?
I can't say that I had a best friend. Most of us were in the same boat. They lived on farms, so of course on Saturday we would go to town, and we usually went to a movie. I think the movie was probably 9 cents at that time, and you could see a newsreel and a cartoon and the feature, and but that was it.
Oh, I had several best friends. In first grade, my best friend's name was Tweed Brooks, and she had long hair in plaits, and she moved away. So I had 2 or 3 other best friends in grade school. Linda Johnson was one of them. And then when I got in the 5th or 6th grade, Carol Wallace was my best friend. And her family went to the Bible church. What was the name of that? It wasn't a denominational church, it was a Bible church. And she went to the Billy Graham Crusade between the 6th and 7th grade, and she really became spiritual to the point where when it was time to go to junior high, she couldn't deal with the change in what was going on in school, and she just about had a nervous breakdown. And I had to go to a different junior high, so I lost contact with her. But then in high school, I had 2 or 3 best friends. Joyce West was my best friend in junior high, and she got married when we were seniors. Jerry Hudson was a best friend in high school, and she passed away a few years ago. She became famous for writing a book and being an organist at Luby's and across from SMU. And so those were my best friends in school.
Did you get an allowance? How much was it, and what did you spend your money on?
I don't remember getting an allowance. As I got older, of course, we worked, and we worked for other farmers. We might pick cotton or something like that, or haul hay or something. But that's where we got our. That's how we got our money. And of course, I always stayed home when my mother and daddy went to town, so that I could put gas in the pickup that I was going to use that night. And because we weren't supposed to put tractor gas in the vehicle, road vehicle. So, but I don't know if Daddy ever caught on that if that's what I was doing or not. But I didn't have any money, so I had to get the gas from the tractor gas, and it never failed. They'd come home. He said, "Well, I need to use the truck to go do such and such," and I said, "Well, I'll go do it for you." So he couldn't see that I had to fill the truck up with gas.
I remember getting $1 a week, and I think movies were a quarter by the time I was in high school, and we got more than what you said. We got a double feature and 5 cartoons and a cereal that you had a continuation every week. So I spent a quarter of it to go to the movies. And you could go to Ashburn's Ice Cream and get a double dip for a dime. And I always put some money in church out of my dollar allowance.
Did you ever get in trouble as a child or teenager? Did you have a curfew, and what time was it? And did you ever miss curfew?
No, I don't guess I had a curfew. But it's funny in a small town. No matter what you did, your daddy usually knew the next day or two what you did. I don't never did figure out how that happened, but they always seemed to be able to tell him, what he did. But one thing that I remember is that, of course, I drove a pickup, and it had a solid seat, and then there's empty spaces on each side of the seat. And one day after I had driven the pickup, Daddy pulled out a whiskey bottle out of one of the spaces, and he said, "Is this yours?" And I said, "No, it's not." I said, "Do you think I would put it in there if it was mine?" So somebody, one of my friends, put an empty whiskey bottle in there so I'd get in trouble. So, but as far as the curfew, no, I guess I didn't have one. But I always managed to go home at a reasonable time. So.
Well, I didn't have a car because my dad had a company car, and that was the only car we had. So he drove it to church and to work, and that was about it. So Jerry had a car after we got like a sophomore in high school, and I don't remember being told a certain time I had to come in. But when Wilbert and I started dating, if we parked in the driveway and didn't come right in, my dad would come out on the porch and start flipping the porch light. So that told me that I was supposed to come in.
How did you meet, and what was your marriage proposal like?
Well, we met at Texas Fire and Light when she was working during the summer, and I was just sitting out in the hall waiting to go to work, or maybe it was at noon. I'm not sure now. But she walked by, and I said something to her. I think you look familiar to me or something. I'm not sure now what I said.
You didn't remember that pickup line you had?
So we had a few dates during that time she was working there. And I don't know when she proposed to me. But she graduated, she was getting ready to graduate from school and from high school and was getting ready to go off to college. So I figured, well, I need to get my military service over. So that's when I went in the military, is whenever she was getting ready to go to college.
A week or two before all my graduation activities.
But when you go down, they tell you when to report, so I didn't have any choice but report when they told me to report.
What was the question?
How did you meet Granddaddy, and what was your marriage proposal like?
Okay, this friend of his named Raymond told me in the elevator, "I know somebody that thinks you're cute." So I don't know if you put him up to saying that or not, but anyway, that was the first word I heard about it. And when I was getting ready to graduate, Granddaddy wanted us to get married, and I said, "No, I'm going to college." So then he just jumped up and went and joined the Army. And so I went to ACU the first year, and then he got sent to Germany in February while I was at ACU. And so when it was time to go back to school, I worked at Texas Power and Light again that next summer in the safety department, and to save up money to help pay for school. And my dad said, "Well, if you're going to get married, I'm not going to pay for you to go to school. If that's what you're going to do, I'm not going to pay for you to go to school. So I said, okay, then I'll go to North Texas because I can afford to pay the tuition up there. And it'll be closer to Dallas when Wilbert gets back from the Army. So I did. I went to North Texas in the fall of would have been my sophomore year, but actually I was almost a junior because I'd taken a bunch of hours at SMU after I finished high school. So I was miserable up there because I was used to ACU, and I had these professors, you know, that told you if you believe in the Bible, then you're just crazy. And so I was pretty unhappy, and I called him and said, I think if you want me to still get married, if you still want to get married, I'll come over there. And he said, okay, I'll send you a ticket.